You know, when I started doing graffiti, spray paint was more of an exclusive thing to graffiti culture, and people do graffiti, whereas now spray paint's just become a tool. Um, and yeah, I say I've become more of a street artist, but I don't necessarily believe in where that totally fits in society, because the people who more of the graffiti community is like, we put a lot of years in to sort of get to where we are, put a lot of love, dedication, years, whatever time, and now that with the internet and the way things have gone, like things that took us years to learn, now everything's kind of just available, and I've got mixed feelings about that, because the hard work element's sort of gone. But you know, like as the world evolves, I'm just getting used to change, I guess. I've been doing it 22 years, so it's like I've put in years of grind, did it before money was ever considered, never did it to do it for money, never wanted to do it for money. It was something that just accidentally happened. Yeah, I've painted graffiti because I love graffiti. Like, I had no interest in ever making a job out of it ever in my life. People start asking you to paint stuff, and then and say, oh, like, we'll pay for it, pay you for it or whatever, and it just sort of evolved. One person leads to another and to another and to another, and then it's you know, my friend was sort of one of the first sort of commercial sort of graffiti artists in the country, and you know, speaking to him one day, I was just like, you know, it blew my mind that we can make money from doing this. And then I say, there's still nothing. I still carried on with a normal job and a normal career, but then as demand grew, I find myself doing more and more, to the point my wife sort of gave me a bit of an ultimatum of you got to kind of do one or the other. My business is 7 years old next year. No, 7 years old in August. Over 3 years, I built demand and client base. And then eventually I left because I had to do one or the other. And I say it's something I never thought I'd ever do, something I never ever thought was possible. It just kind of happened, and then you know, I still tried. I still have connections to graffiti, but for work-wise, they're two different things. Like what I do for work and graffiti. Yeah.
What's graffiti?
Graffiti culture is more letter-based. You know, all the things that people don't like, tagging and stuff like that. That is the rebellious side, I'd say. People get mixed up, like street art and graffiti are the same thing. They're absolutely not the same thing. So graffiti culture started 80s, America, quite an aggressive culture, lots of politics, lots of beef within it, or whatever you want to call it. Street art was kind of born later as a subculture from graffiti, with people like Banksy becoming popular in the modern world. Two very different cultures, not very different, two different cultures that have a connection, and that's kind of spray painting in streets. But the people within them, different types of people, different sort of stories, backgrounds, and there's a lot of the graffiti community do not like the evolution of street art. So it's whereas I'm more of a hybrid now. Still have a lot of connections and roots in graffiti, but I do a lot more street art stuff. Some people have evolved, and you know, in my own experience, it's just like not everyone's happy about things changing, and not everyone's happy that you know, you might change your course, your path to do sort of the more commercially or the more publicly accepted kind of routes, basically. It took me a little while myself to kind of be comfortable with making that transition, but I say I was in a faraway country. I can't say where, but I was in a faraway country in a desert with a prolific graffiti vandal, and he said to me, it don't matter what anybody says, what's right, what's wrong. He said, like, the game has changed. He said the game is hustling art now, and he said you got to do whatever you need to do to hustle art. And to hear that from someone as iconic as him was really what I wanted to hear, or what I needed to hear. And sort of from that point, like, yeah, he's got enough. You know, he's earned his respect and his time. That, like, yeah, that's a very, his words valuable enough to sort of take something from that. Peterborough's always been fairly good, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of the older guys aren't really around anymore, not active. But I say the ones I all do speak to now, all really they're really supportive of say the journey I've took. And yeah, say, you know, I always say to them guys, I wouldn't do what I do without seeing them when I was young. You know, it's exposed me to people from quite extreme walks of life. And, you know, you have to kind of make judgments on how comfortable you're accepting with things they may do in their life, crossed over with the common interest you have together. You know, yeah. I don't regret anything. To say I know some interesting people and I've heard lots of interesting stories. But yeah, I grew up Peterborough. Like, I've got 2 convictions for criminal damage from a long time ago, 20 years ago. So now, you know, it's part of my past. I've got a copy of my record check because we work in schools and stuff anyway. I wouldn't be where I am without doing them things. So when I do stuff in schools, it's less about the art. It's more about people seem to be more interested in my journey of how I've got to where I am and where I started and stuff like that. So, you know, I'd always say to kids, it's just 20 odd years. Even when I thought I wasn't good enough, even when I wanted to quit, I never did. And that's the only reason I feel like I am where I am. Been through international media multiple times. You know, I treat business a lot different to sort of like, yeah, the leisure side. I still paint for leisure and such, but yeah, I try to keep the two quite separate. I mean, you know, I always think back, my life, you know, I grew up council, my life is considerably better the last few years, or maybe the last 10 years. I've had quite a crazy journey, to be honest, and I'm just, for me it was more, my life changed when I changed my attitude and the way I looked at the world, with positivity and not like, I don't know, it's rather than hate something, rather than hate this city, I looked at how to make it work for me, and when I started that, it was the sort of start of when my life got better. And I think, yeah, I can't put that into an exact recipe, but that is exactly what I feel I did. It's led me to where I am. From my own experience and what people say to me, I think a lot of it's down to your personality and how and what you sort of give out. I know some amazing artists that struggle to make a living, but they're perfect. They have the skills to, but it's sometimes how they may present themselves in a way that where the other thing comes out, it's probably not exactly the right sort of way to do it. It's a funny one. You know, I think there's an element of luck involved, and there's element of luck and an element of hard work and skill. It's I don't know the exact formula, but yeah, it's with art. To be honest, I always say to people, don't do art to make money. That's absolutely the wrong reason to do it. Do art because you love it, and then if you make money, that's cool. Like, but don't do it to make money, because I don't think it's the I think it's a much harder to succeed if that's your reason for doing it. The thing that I see a comment recently that kind of nailed it for me, and it was on a Damien Hirst piece, and one of his more abstract pieces that provoke a lot of question on, is it art? And this particular piece of art is something I weren't a fan of, but reading the comments, and someone said the key to being an artist is not whether your work is good or bad. The key to being an artist is making a connection to an audience, and that is, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. If you connect to an audience that want it, then you've made it as an artist. I've spent 45 grand on paint in the last 4 years. I have no idea how much I consume per wall. I just keep buying it, so recycle all my cans. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it depends where we are. If we're working, we'll use the bins on site because most commercial places have them. But when I'm doing domestics, I only have a few. It's only a handful of cans empty. They'll just go through recycling. So it's just empty aluminium tins. No.